Awesome. I think we are ready to get started. So just from a quick introduction, I'm Stuart Blumenthal. Today we're going to be going over the Procore tips and tricks, and you'll see Haley here is going to be doing the presentation. She is with Procore and she knows this really well. So we're really honored to have her doing the presentation today and kind of going over the tips and tricks. She is a consultant, so the goal is to really kind of learn from some of the things that she runs into on a constant basis with Sage, Intacct, and Procore. Just a couple logistics before I turn it over to her. First thing, the presentation is going to be about 30 minutes, might go a little bit shorter, might go a little longer, but again, it should be about 30 minutes long. All the phone lines are muted, so please use the questions features within the GoToWebinar. I'll be monitoring those and trying to answer those, or I'll bring those questions up to Haley as we go through it. And then if you want to copy the PowerPoint, just let me know. Just put your email address in the questions feature, and I'll make sure you get a copy of the PowerPoint. Just a couple other quick updates, so that a couple last updates. So Sage 2023 R3 release is going to be done on August 18th. We're really excited about this. So it'll come out exactly 1 month from today. It's a really good release. It's got the compliancy module added finally. We've been waiting for this for a long time, so we're really excited about this new module that Sage is adding to the system, and there's a lot of other construction features. We'll be doing a webinar as we get closer. Since we're waiting to get our hands on the preview copy, and we'll schedule a webinar for our clients. Couple of our upcoming webinars here at ETHOSystems. One is we have Valexio, which is an Excel add-in that pulls information real time from Sage Intacct into Excel, and you can update specific cells in Excel. It's a really cool feature. We're gonna have our AP and GL approval tips and tricks that same week. And then in September, we're going to be doing 2 different webinars, one on bank feeds and the next one on the Intacct construction payroll module. So got a lot of upcoming trainings coming the next couple of months, plus the R3 release. So there'll be 5 of them all together. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Haley, and who is going to go through the Procore. So Haley, it's all yours.
Thank you, Stuart, and thank you everyone for joining. Really excited for this collaborative effort so we can have some better integrations. So I'm going to start kind of top level, just introduction to the integration itself, what is supported in the integration, what is not supported, and then just kind of get into, like Stuart said, more of the tips and tricks and how to have a successful integration during implementation and down the road. So get started here. You see on the left, we've got the Procore project financials, and on the right is going to be your Sage Intacct records. Standard cost codes and cost types, that's going to be a flow in from Sage Intacct. So you're going to create your standard catalogs for both those items in Sage. When we turn on the integration, those will flow over, and those are going to act as kind of like a language for how your financial records are going to be able to talk to each other through the integration. So really important that we get those cost codes and cost types standardized right off the bat, so we don't have any issues down the road. So you can see the next couple ones here are going to be bi-directional. So projects and sub-projects, sub-jobs can be created in either system and imported into the other. So a lot of flexibility here in how your internal workflows are already set up, and you can really apply that to the integration. Companies and vendors are also going to work sorry about that, Stuart, bi-directionally. So you can create those in either system and sync them up to the other. And with this feature, you also have the option to link. So they can be created and exist in both systems, and we can link them up. That is a feature that's unique to companies and vendors. We don't have the ability to link with these other items. Budgets and estimates, also going to be bi-directional. And commitment change orders, and invoicing is going to be a one-way street. So those items are going to originate in Procore and be exported out to Sage Intacct. So you can go to the next one. Thank you. And then we have a couple of reports that we're pulling in from Sage. So all of your job-to-date costs, direct costs, and any payments that are issued to invoices, and also payments on direct costs. Those are to be reports that pull into Procore into a couple different areas, but mostly just reporting information that's going to pull in. So you do have access to that on the Procore side. All right, for the next one, please. All right, so Procore supported features, integration supported features, and non-supported features are going to be something that you really want to take a look at prior to implementation. So there's a lot of information on here on really how that information is going to flow, and also some restrictions that we have. So we'll kind of just highlight these supported features quickly. I know we already talked about the direction of these records and how they can flow through the integration. Nothing really new here than what we already talked about, but one thing to kind of highlight is that your Sage Intacct vendor ID will be created in Sage, so that is supported. All right, unsupported features. So this is something that we do get a little pushback on once people have the integration, is not really understanding what is not supported through the integration. So kind of just highlight here is that the active Procore projects, the integration is really designed best to work with brand new projects after you're connected with Sage Intacct. So there are some other options that we can discuss, and we'll discuss a little bit later on for getting those in-progress projects kind of up to date and integratable with Sage Intacct. But it's good to kind of go into this integration with the understanding that active projects really aren't meant to be used with the integration. You're going to want to start fresh with a brand new project. Also, prime contract change orders, and owner invoices are not yet a supported feature. It is something that we are working on. It's on the roadmap to bring that kind of to the robustness of Sage 300 and the other Sage products. So it is not yet supported, but it is on the roadmap. A couple of things to talk about with cost code structure and cost type. Very important that you have this discussion early on how your cost codes are going to be structured. Non-sectioned cost codes, so cost codes without that delimiter, that DOSH or DOT, are not supported. So we have to have kind of a parent-child relationship, a division cost code kind of relationship for those cost codes in order to be work with the integration. On the other side of things, cost types. Well, they can have a hierarchy in Sage Intacct. Hierarchy through the integration in Procore is not supported. And the biggest thing we run into is going to be the cost code names and descriptions. Unfortunately, those do have to be unique for the integration to work successfully. So while you can have duplicates on the Sage side, in order to work with the integration, they will have to be unique. Just some resources there. We do have, for anyone interested, and it's really great to take a look at, is the detailed data mapping. It's going to show you every dimension, every field that actually goes through the integration. So it'll give you a better idea of kind of the nitty-gritty of what actually is going to be processed through the integration. Great. All right, so if you're kind of thinking about integration, or you've just integrated and kind of just moving forward, it is best to really get engaged with your Procore integration implementation specialist. So that's someone like myself who will kind of work with your Sage consultant with your goals on how you want to move forward with the integration, and really just align and make sure everything's compatible, align expectations, and get you guys going in the right direction as soon as possible. So as we talked about earlier, cost codes are probably our #1 roadblock that we run into when we're starting implementation with the integration. So we really want to get on that sooner rather than later, discuss the formatting, the tiers, and names and descriptions to make sure that they're compatible with the integration. I'd say it's rare that we get a cost code list when we're starting implementation that is perfect and good and ready to go. So we just like to have those discussions early on so we can avoid any duplicate entries or having to rework the entire cost code formatting. So go on, thank you. All right, so we are seeing a ton of customers right now that are doing some migration, I'll say mostly from Sage 300 to Intacct, but also from some other integrated ERP system. So just like we want to bring in an IIS from Procore earlier rather than later, it's really important to have these discussions about any active projects that we're thinking about migrating over, or how we want to deal with those costs or that project, and so potential kind of ways forward for that. So depending on how much data is on there, how much rework that you're committed to doing, there are a few options for that. So I'd say our biggest one would probably be using a cost code kind of back out. So any of those old cost codes on a project, you would back that off the project. We can reset that. Those cost codes can be added back on, and then you can use the integration for that project. Some other options, kind of less popular, but a project recreation. So just really starting from scratch and creating that project over again. So you're able to use that cost code integrated set and send those over to Sage Intacct. We also are, our Procore ERP team is building out a professional services option. And that would look like mapping your cost codes, your existing cost codes in Procore, to the cost codes, your cost code catalog in Sage Intacct. So it is an additional product that we offer. It does take quite a few resources on our end and a lot of back end work to point those kind of old cost codes to the new cost codes and make those existing active projects integratable. So while the integration is designed to work with new projects and not active projects, it's really gonna be how it's gonna work best and kind of avoid complications down the road. If you have some in-progress projects that you really need to get over, then there are some options for you. But like I said, best to really get Procore involved sooner rather than later, so we can work together to make sure that that's a smooth process.
So Haley, one of the questions that came in is that they're stating that they're trying to decide if they should get started with Procore first or with Sage first. Is there a recommended approach to this?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's really going to be unique, I think, case by case. I'd say you're going to want to get started with Sage to an extent. There is a setup guide that needs to be followed, and a couple of like prerequisites that need to be completed prior to the integration being turned on. And most importantly, it's going to be that cost code, cost type catalog. That's kind of the bare minimum. Let's follow the setup guide, make sure the prerequisites are established, and most importantly, those cost codes and cost types. And then we can do something where we kind of turn on the integration, like a soft kind of go live, where we bring in those standard cost code catalog that I referenced, kind of like a language that those projects in Procore are going to be built out on. Really, that's all you need from the Sage perspective in order to move forward with Procore. But it's really a case-by-case basis, depending on how much training you're going to need in Intacct, how much training you're going to need in Procore, and how much training you're going to need on the integration itself. So I'd say if you are an existing Procore customer and you don't need any additional financial management training, you're pretty well versed there, but you're not quite up to speed in Sage Intacct. But you still need to get projects going. You may not be integrating them right now, but you'd like to do that down the road. I'd say the best way to do that is to kind of do that soft go live, turn on that integration, bring those cost codes over, kind of put a pin in it, and then you can continue your training in Procore, continue building out those projects in Procore, and then we can revisit that integration discussion down the road where we're really training on how things flow between the two systems. I can't give you kind of like a hard answer on that, but I'd say really where you want to bring Procore in, an ETHOSystem in, and just have that discussion about what your goals are, what your timeline's looking like, and we can kind of tailor a better roadmap for that situation.
Perfect.
Oh, and here we go. Just kind of the one thing that we also kind of run across is having too many different competing interests, I suppose. Just kind of talked about where, we have our Sage go live is, this date. our integration go live maybe a little bit sooner. And then for any new Procore customers, you're going to be doing a ton of training, financial training, project management training, a lot of other items that are going to need to be completed before you can fully understand kind of, that integrated piece. And so there's going to be a lot of trainings on the Sage side, a lot of trainings on the Procore side, and of course our training with the integration. So I just can't echo that enough. Just really getting all parties involved and coming together with a timeline, some goals we want to set, and how we're going to move forward with that together. So yeah, I think that's really, really the best way to go about it, because every situation is going to be unique.
Perfect.
And I do want to touch on that last bullet point there. So we do have some folks that really don't even want to touch the integration until they're fully live in Sage Intacct. But just that caveat there is that the cost codes you won't be able to create an integratable project without those standard cost codes being imported into Procore from Sage Intacct. So that's where we kind of talk about maybe turning on that integration, bringing those cost codes over, really just putting a pin in it until everyone's more comfortable using the integration and receiving training on it. All right, so I talked earlier about the setup guide. Very, very important, and usually our biggest kind of integration hiccups come from the setup guide not being completed exactly as directed, exactly step for step of what we're really trying to outline there, and the prerequisites that we need completed before the integration is turned on. So without these, being checked off in its entirety, you're going to hit a lot of errors, a lot of kind of frustration going back into Sage, and reworking a lot of steps that have already been completed. So the ones that we see the most are going to be the web service user permissions. A web service user is going to be a user set up for Procore to be able to talk to the integration. So it needs all of the permissions for Sage Intacct in order for that information to flow correctly. So that's definitely number one, is to have all of those permissions set to all for every single section. There's also in your welcome email, when you purchase the integration, there's going to be a configuration package attached to that email, and it's really important that that's installed. That one does often get overlooked. And then we also have a DMSA, so that's a Sage Intacct specific application that's going to be installed on your Procore site, and that is something that needs to be completed by the customer, and we are not able to turn on the integration, create that microservice without that installed. So that's kind of another roadblock that we'll run into. Unit of measures is one that we often see completed incorrectly. So really important when you get to that setup stage to follow those directions to the T, because without those getting set up, we run into a lot of issues exporting purchase orders and change orders that are using unit of measure. And then the GL account, Procore custom fields. So part of the setup guide is to create some custom fields for your GL accounts specifically, and those are going to be account type and cost type. Understanding how the GL, those custom fields work on the GL account is going to be really important. When those fields are populated, it's going to bring in that information to your job to date cost and your direct cost column. So making sure that those are populated correctly and we're seeing those hit the correct columns on your reports and in your budget are going to be something that we want to pay attention to as well. So those are really our top 5 kind of pain points as far as the setup guide is concerned, and how we can address those ahead of time to avoid any errors or complications down the road. All right, so we do have, I referenced them earlier, we do have prime contracts and prime contract change orders are on the roadmap, and we're really excited for both of those to come out to kind of bring this integration up to par with the other integrations that we have. So very, very excited to see those prime contracts and prime contract change orders and the related billings coming out very soon. So that. And we also have a job to date cost, direct cost detailing, I believe was just released very recently. So that is also kind of bringing us up to par with Sage 300. So we're getting there. We're really working on releasing a lot of new features to make it a more robust integration. That's it.
One of the questions that, thank you so much. One of the questions that came in, what is the difference between the Sage 300 integration and the Sage Intacct integration?
Yeah, so there are, like I said, Sage 300 is just more robust. It is been around longer and has just more features that have been built out. I'd say the biggest difference between the two being those prime contracts and prime contract change orders. That is a feature that is currently live with the 300 integration, but it is, like I said, on the roadmap for Intacct. We believe last I had was slated for the end of Q3, but I know that we are actively testing that and working on getting that released live as soon as possible. Apart from that, I believe that the next biggest difference is going to be insurance. Insurance in 300, tracking the W9 and the COIs are something that does go through the integration at this time for 300, but is not part of the feature set for Intacct. Those are the two biggest ones that we often hear about.
Perfect. And it's probably good to note that the 300 integration is the one that was done by HH2, and the one for Intacct is actually the direct integration with Procore.
Yep, yeah, thank you for reminding me that. Yep, 300 is going to be a server-based integration, where Intacct is obviously completely cloud-based. So you're kind of cutting out that piece of the puzzle there. So thanks for bringing that up.
Perfect. Any other questions from the team out there? We've got a good size audience here, so any other questions? Does not look like it. So Haley, thank you so much for putting this together and presenting today. Hopefully everyone's got some good information out of here. If you do have any questions afterwards, please feel free to reach out to myself, Stuart.Blumenthal@ETHOSystems.com, or Haley at Procore. I'll put her there, and feel free to reach out to us. Really appreciate you putting this together, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Stuart.
Have a great day, everyone. Take care.